and welcome to the Sega Importorium. It's a show all about games that never made it over to the US. Whether it's from Europe, Japan, or Brazil, doesn't matter. As long as it didn't make it to the US, it's fair game on this show. For the first episode, we're going to talk about something very popular in both Japan and Asia as a whole, Mahjong. Now, if you've ever played the game Rummy, it's a very similar game to that, but we'll kind of explain the game when we get into the rest of the episode. What it has to do with Sega is that on the Sega Saturn, there are a lot of Mahjong games. And the first thing I'm going to cover is this Mahjong game that I found, Super Real Mahjong PV. Now, since it has Super and Real in the title, that means it's got to be the definitive Mahjong experience for the Sega Saturn, right? Well, if you like two-player anime-stripping girl action, yeah, maybe it is the definitive experience.
In earnest, there are plenty of Mahjong games out there for the Saturn. This just happens to be the one that I have. This particular one is actually a series of games that are ported over from the arcades. And each game in the series is really only different in the different girls that you're playing against and some different music, and it looks a little bit nicer. Some of the later games do include mini-games, however, so it does get a little more interesting. Believe it or not, most of the Mahjong games on the Saturn are the strip Mahjong style of games. I know I'm aware of a few other Mahjong games on the system that aren't strip Mahjong, but a majority of the games are the strip Mahjong. So all of the games in the series basically play the same. You have a few different girls that you play in order, and you have to beat a certain number of times to get through all of their stripping, essentially. And once you've defeated one girl, or made one girl strip completely, you move on to the next girl. How you actually accomplish this is, of course, by playing Mahjong. Now, Mahjong as a game isn't really that difficult. You get 13 tiles at the beginning of your game, and there are 3 suits that you get of tiles: characters, sticks, and dots. And these are all numbered 1 through 9, and there are 4 of each tile in a full Mahjong set. Then you have the weird special characters like dragons and winds. Now your goal is to make a hand using every tile you currently have. You do this by making sets mainly, which are either 3 numbers in a row of the same suit, or the same exact tile 3 times. Every turn, you can either draw a new tile, or you can take your opponent's tile they just discarded, and then you have to discard a tile yourself, unless you make a full hand that gives you points. If you've ever played Rummy, like previously mentioned, this should sound relatively familiar. However, the amount of hands you can make is staggering, and there are plenty of weird, obscure hands that don't involve making sets at all. So if you plan to import this game and you haven't played Mahjong before, you should probably go online and get a Mahjong Rule Set, so you'll be able to tell what the characters are, and you'll also be able to tell what kind of crazy hands you need to be able to make. Now, actually playing the game is pretty intuitive and simple, so you really won't need a lot of knowledge of Japanese to really play the game. There's only 2 menus that are actually in Japanese that you'll need to learn, and even if there are no translations out there, you could easily figure out what to do with some trial and error. Now, the first menu is for when you're claiming a piece from your opponent when they discard something you want. The only difference in each choice is how you use it. The first option in this menu is for a tile that gives you a complete hand. So if you're about to go out, if you're basically going to win a hand, this is the option you use. The second option is if you're going to have a straight. So if you're going to have a 1, 2, 3 in the same suit, you would use this option. The third choice is if you have a set, so it's the same type. So if you have a 1 of dots, and then you need the third 1 of dots, you would use the third option. And the last option is for when you have 4 of the same. So that's if you have all 4 of the 1 of dots, essentially. When you get one of those, it does some extra special rules, but really you won't have to worry about that yourself. The second menu is for calling a winning hand if you draw it, besides the top option. So the last 2 options are basically just saying, I won the hand. The first option, however, is for what's called a Richi, which is the type of Mahjong that this game is based on. And all Richi is meaning is that you're 1 away from going out, and you have a completely concealed hand, so you haven't called any pieces from your opponent. All you do with this is bet an extra 1,000 points that you're going to get the piece you need before your opponent goes out. If you don't, you lose 1,000. If you win, you get an extra 1,000. Now, the main attraction here isn't the Mahjong. It's the anime girls. As far as the anime girls go, the animation and the video quality is surprisingly solid for a 32-bit console. The voice clips are also very plentiful, and they all sound really nice. The animation job itself looks pretty comparable to the animation at the time from that era. Not to mention, there is a plentiful amount of video and voiceover, so you do get your money's worth out of that. And at the risk of sounding a little bit pervy, when the game does give you the payoff for when you do finally beat the girl enough times, they don't skimp on the showing off. They go pretty much all the way, and they give you quite a lot of time with it too, so I mean, if that's your thing, you get your money's worth out of it. So, realistically though, you'll feel like you're earning something as you keep winning hand after hand after hand. However, there are some minor complaints in this game. For one, you don't choose the girl you play against. Instead, they are in a set order, and once you've bested one girl, a cutscene shows the next girl arriving. It does seem like there's a semblance of a reason why you're all together playing split Mahjong, but since I don't understand Japanese, I don't understand what they're saying during the cutscenes that would probably tell me why. While the game has unlimited continues if you lose, it can take quite a while to win enough hands in a row to get through even the first girl, let alone all 3 girls in one shot. There's no saving in this game, so not being able to choose can be kind of annoying since it's kind of frustrating to have to go through the same first girl over and over again just to try to get to the end of the game. The music can also get quite repetitive, quite fast. So what starts out as a pretty alright, pleasant music to listen to gets grating after hearing the same 1-minute track loop for the 50th time. And trust me, you will hear the track a lot, because it is quite difficult again to win multiple hands in a row. It's going to take a while to get to the next girl and hear the next new track. So where does that leave us? Well, it's a cheap import, and you can get it for around 10 to 15 bucks as of this video. And so long as you have a modded Saturn, cheap device, or Japanese console, it's pretty import friendly, so you should be able to play the game so long as you know the rules of Mahjong. If you're into Mahjong, it plays decently enough and can feed the itch if you don't have friends around to play, just don't play it around other people, they might get a weird idea. Just don't expect anything more than bare bones Mahjong with stripping. Otherwise, it's not a must-have title or anything, but it's cheap, and unlike a lot of imports, you'll be able to play it without a huge guide or end up playing a game while missing out on the entire story. So, while it's not certainly the best game to import, it's very easy to get a hold of, it's very playable without needing to know Japanese or anything, so if you want an oddity or dig Mahjong or dig anime girls in traditional Asian board games, then give Super Real Mahjong PV a shot.